All right, so I just want to make some adjustments on this structure. So the adjustment I want to make is just to add another subcontainer. Let's say nav. Then I'm wrapping all the header, that's the logo, and the UL item inside it. Then I can decide to do away with this. I don't know if we have started styling it. Let me check. Okay, I think we have not really done anything reasonable there. I think we only activated the border line just for us to know that we are working with box elements. So, which means that I can actually leave it, but I will just say I'll change this to this. All right, so what we are focusing on in this section is how to make the navbar presentable and readable to users. So the outcome on the screen is just the implementation of the HTML. Now we want to style it to make it look presentable. So as usual, you need to create your CSS file if you have not created your either internal or external CSS file. You have to do that. But in my own case, I have done that from the last class. Now, the first thing I want to style here, let me see if I can actually, I will retain this. And then I will take off this because I no longer have it. Because if you check my structure now, yes, if you check the structure, there are empty seats here. I don't know why you go to the back. So here we have why I deleted that because I'm no longer working with what? Navbar. You know, initially I classed this place what? Navbar. But now I have replaced it with flex. Should in case I want to talk to the first layer or the first mat in which you have the second container and then you have your logo directly inside the second container, and then you have another container, which is what? UL, directly inside the nav container, and then you have the lists, which are the navigation links inside the UL. So just like I modeled it the other time, if I'm to model this, I'm going to have how many boxes? Let's leave body. Let's start from the div class flex. That will be the first box, right? Inside it, we have the second box as nav. Now, inside the nav, we will have two boxes. Hope you know that. One is what? This. And then the other one is what? This. Okay, so before you start your styling, you need to understand your HTML structure, your content structure. There is what we call DOM. That is what? Document Object Modeling. Document Object Modeling, which simply talk about the relationship, establishing or knowing the relationship of one element and what? The other. So it's a concept you must have each time you want to style. can see I have to spend some time to understand the structure so that I will go to CSS, and then if I'm calling H1, and then another H1 will be responding, just because I do not take time to understand the structure to know that, oh, there is H1 inside a nav. So if it's reacting differently, I will say, okay, I can use the parents to identify the exact H1 I am communicating to. But when you don't understand the structure of your code, you will write some of these CSS properties and you will see them not reacting, just because your HTML structure is not allowing them to relate with the element. That is the reason why I was emphasizing the other time that we should always be conscious of what we are going to do in CSS when you are writing what? Your HTML code. So now with that DOM understanding, now I know that I have the parent element, which is what? The div, and then I have the child element, which is what? The nav, and then I have another word. I have a grandchild. The relationship between this H1 to this div is not child, is what? Grandchild. How do I know? How do I know? This navbar is a direct child of what? Div, right? But the H1 to the div is what? A grandchild, right? Good. So you need to understand that is the meaning of what? The DOM, document object what? Modeling, knowing the relationship. Now, going to my CSS, there is what we call global selector. I expect you to be writing and observing, not coding. Global selector. Global selector. Who is that person? Global selector. So what do we mean by global selector? I think the best way I will explain it is to practicalize it. Now look up. Whenever you select an element like this, this is referred to as what? Global selector. Are you with me? It's referred to as what? Global what? Selector. The question you should be asking yourself is that asterisk, which element is it representing? Is it H1? Is it div? Is it li? Is it ul? The answer is no. Now, I want us to know that if you come to your browser here, this is where you understand it. Browser has standard CSS styling when you have not spoken to the elements. There is a default styling that is already programmed with what? Most browsers. If I ask us now, this space here between this N and I from the top, are you the one that created it? Why is it not merging? Have you called anything called margin? So what created that space? That is the browser calculation. So I will be the one to stop the browser. That is when I assign my own. But if I do not assign, the browser will implement what? Its own. Always have that at the back of your mind. You ask yourself also, what created this space? It's the same browser. So now it means that if I'm to model this front end now, this edge that I'm navigating at is one of the container, right? Why where you have this item that created this outside space called margin is another container. So I have just two containers at the moment. Now, this first line you are seeing, which is the first container, was generated with, or is generated with the body tag. Are you with me? The body tag, not the div, not the nav. So that's X, that asterisk is to talk to the body of the browser and the what? The body of the content. Do you understand it? Good. So now, if I come back to my CSS and I say margin, and I say margin 0, now I go back to the front end. What I change? So which means that what? You are actually talking to what? To the body of the content and the body of what? The browser. Do you understand it? Now, if I come back here now and I say padding, I believe we all know the meaning of these properties. If you don't know, speak out. Good. Now, if I click now, what has changed? Did you see it now? There's a reason why we reset. So this is actually what? Resetting the browser, what? Margin and what? Padding. That you have your own intention. You want to instruct them. Because if you leave the browsers on there, when you start talking to the container, you see the container sluggishly what? Moving or not moving. Just because the browser owns is still there. So for those that said that do not understand what is called padding, let me illustrate. I want us to know that every HTML element you declare is a box model. That is what? It shapes as what? A box. We say box model, mode. That is what? It shapes as what? A box. Which simply means that what? If I write H1 here, for example, H1, and I create content here, and then I close the H1. There is, or there are invisible borderlines. You should always know whether they are there or not. If you create image tag, always know that what? There are what? That image is in a box. If you create paragraph tag, just know that what? The content each of these tags will be generating, they are box. That is the reason why, how do I know? Because by default, it will not be active. How do I know? Let me explain now. The best way to know is for you. Let's just speak to one of the elements, which is a div with the class name what? Flex, right? So let's say I want to know whether it's actually in a box. So I will just temporarily, because I'm coming here to remove it, I will just say what? Dot what? Flex, because it's a class element. So if I say border and I define the thickness of the border, the line type of the border, and the color of the border so that I can see it. So let's say red. If I go back to the front end, you see that what? The box has been what? Generated. The reason why you are not seeing it now, let me comment out what? These two young men. And then come back. Is it clear to you now? So what we are saying is that anytime you call any element in HTML, always know that what is surrounded by what? 4 lines. Now, it is this concept that brought about margin, that brought about what? Padding. If not that we are seeing the HTML object as box model, there wouldn't have been anything called what? Margin and padding. So how does the box now bring about what? Space. Call it what? Margin. Margin means space. Padding means space. So what differentiates them? One is inside space. One is what? Outside space. Am I communicating? Yes. Now, between these elements, let me make it more real so that you understand it. If I temporarily, I just want to make sure that I nail this, nobody get confused about it again. If I have div, another container, right? So let's say I class this one I class this word plus 1. And then I go to my CSS. I want to talk to that very one. Being a class object, I'll say what? Dot what? Plus 1. Then let me give it some width because there is no content inside. Let me just add width. I'll just say, okay, width, I understand that. Okay, let me just say 500 PS. And then let me also add some what? Height. Height, let's say 300 PS. Now, let me also activate what? The border line. So let me copy this to save my time, Control C, and then come in here and then paste. So if I go back to the front end, what are you noticing? The two of them are touching each other, right? So, which means that what? The space between the first div and the second div is 0. So I need space from the outside, not from the inside. So I will use what? Margin. So I will now come here and say, now, there are two things here. If mountain refuse to meet Moses, Moses will meet what? Mountain. That is why in programming, they will call debugging, which is part of skills you need to have. Debugging. There is no amount of skills you have in any tech domain that guarantee you that you will not face challenges. The best web developer in the world today faces what? Challenges when coding. So don't get discouraged when you code and it's not working. You not give up. No. You have to keep what? Looking for where the error is. Now, this is where I want to ask us some questions. If I am talking to this first div and I say what? Margin bottom. Margin bottom. That is what? From the bottom, create space. Can that push this one down? That is one option. What about if I try that and it doesn't work? I will now ask myself again, okay, now let me talk to the second word, div. Margin, top. That is what? Create some space at the top. One of them must work. And the two of them can fail, depend on how they are structured in what? HTML. If you wrap this div in 3 different div, and you are not talking to the outermost, the first one, and say margin top or margin bottom, you'll be surprised to not move. So that's why I said your structure in HTML speaks a lot. So now let's go and try those two options. So I want to start with this one. So coming to this one, this is where we called it, right? I'll start by saying margin what? Bottom, right? I'll say, okay, give me space of 30 PS. Perfect. Don't be surprised you type your own, now it does not work. You change to what? The other way around. Good. Now, if we are asked, the space between this element and this element is called what? Margin. Now, here, between this and this is what? Another margin. Here, if I have another element coming here now, the space between two of them from the outside is still margin, right? Now, look at this home. Let me add, sorry, for you to understand it, let me go back to this. Let me add an element. Let's say what? H1 here. And I say what? Welcome. So if I go back to the front end now, you can see this welcome, right? The space between it, let me use my note. The space between this and the border line here. Another space here. Another space here. If I move this young man out, the space here, of course, there's no space here, is touching, right? So let's assume there's a space here. Those spaces, they are called what? Padding. The space between the content and the border lines is called what? Padding. Now, if for one reason I say that I want to shift this welcome so that it will not be touching this line, what padding will I use? Padding what? Left. Are you with me? Padding what? Left. So let's go there and try it and see. So if I go back to my code now, so which other I'm talking to now? I was okay, I will use this parent to call it, right?
So I'll come here and say, because I have different H1 there, and I want to talk to the one in one particular element, right? So I will say dot what? Plus 1 space H what? 1 before what? Which means that what? The H1 in an element with a class name called what? +1 is the one I want you to talk to. So I will say what? Somebody say padding what? Padding what? Left, right? Okay. So, okay, give me space of 30 PS. Give me space of 30 PS. Perfect. You see, when you understand this logic, it's very simple. Do you understand it now? Good. So now let's go back to our business. So I need to clear off this. Just use it to explain the concept of, I think this one too is going right. This one too, was it? Okay. Then in my HTML, this should go. All right, so let me bring back the global what? Selectors. Where is it? Okay, I cleared the data. Okay, let me just reactivate them back. All right. So now the next thing I want to do is box sizing as part of what I want to capture in the global selector. So what is called the box sizing? So here, in this case, I could say that I don't need the margin for now. First, let me see how it appears. Okay. What is box sizing? There are some properties that you can never use until you are talking to content in a box. Property like item, align item. You cannot just be talking to individual element and you say what? Align item. Instead you say what? Text what? Align. Align item. Oh, that means you are saying that there is a box that have what? Item inside. The item inside help me to what? Align them. So when you say what? Box sizing, it means that you are talking about a box with things inside it. In this case now, this is the box, right? And inside this box, there are child elements. And on no case, the content inside the box should flow beyond the boundary of the box. So that's what you want to contain now. You want to like, as I continue styling, none of you should span away from what? The box. You are all fixed. You must, no matter how I'm going to move you, you must remain within the what? The box. So that is why in my global selection, I will say what? Box what? Sizing. Where is it? Box sizing. I will say what? 0. Box sizing. 0. You can see that there's no reaction. But it's going to work when you start speaking to what? All this. So no matter how you are going to move them, none of them will be moved away from what? The box. You have like limited them. So the next one is, I want to create a global font. Global font. So I can come here and say font family. Font family. I want to use cursive or any other font. Sir, what does this font does? Let's go back to the front end. Who can tell me what I changed? All the write-off font have changed at the moment, right? Now, because at the moment you have not spoken to them individually. So what you have just specified is that should in case I did not call any of the text and say what? Define the handwriting, use the parent font. So any text that you do not style will automatically what? inherit this very one. But you know that before we assign this one, the browser gave us its own. I told that browser always have default setting for all the elements. So now the next thing is we want to talk to that first container, the one we name what? The one we class place. Let me come back here. Each time I want to talk to them, I'll be coming back so that you know which one I want to communicate to now. So I want to talk to this now. Do you know why I started with global selector? Global selector is body. And this very one is inside what? Body. Are you following? So I am starting from what? Top. So in my CSS file, I will use comment to specify styling the what? The div with class name what? Place. So dot what? Place. So my CSS property, the first one here is the height. Mind you, this container that is holding your nav bar is not meant to use the entire page, because when I drew the other time, web page structure, I identify what? 3 parts, right? The nav bar, the body, and the footer. So if I did not specify its width and height, it means that what? It might be using what? The whole space. So the first thing is to say your height is going to be, let's say, 100 VH. Vertical height. So if I come back here, you can see that what? Can you see that what? It has what? Changed. Good. Now, I will also specify the width. Mind you, what we are talking to is not the navbar, is the first math. Let's go back to the structure. The structure will remind you. After body is this div. Inside this div, that is where your body, your header, your footer will eventually what? Be. That is what it means. One question. Okay, so how do you know? One, you have known one now. That one is what? 100 what? VH first, have you? So that's why we are here. Good, you know one. Now you want to know another one. During your practice, you put 50 and see what happened. When you put 50, you put 40, you know 3 now, have you? You put 30, you know 4. That's how you keep knowing. So, but when we are training, we train with what? Standard. But you can customize. No developer can tell you that everything must be like this, because we all have different what? Choices. Not trial by error. It's when you are trying to look for that one that suits your own. That's when you do trial by error. But if I have not the one that suits me, I won't be doing trial by error. I only do trial by error once. You understand that? So the standard is this. Now, the next, I just want us to know what we are talking to per time. So now the height, you see, if you do not specify, the width, if you do not specify all this, always remember that the browser will always effect its own calculation. So the moment you define your own, you automatically stop the browser from calculating the width and the what? The height. So the browser is now forced to follow your instruction. So the height, I would say what? 100%. All these are not, they are not fixed. They can be changed if the reaction is not okay by you. So if I go back there and say what? 100%. Now this 100% that I did, look at it here. You can see that the scroll bar here now, I don't know if you are seeing the scroll bar here. The scroll bar here. Yes. If you do not put that 100%, you will see whereby sometimes when you create the navbar and it's all these items horizontally, they are longer than the width, you will see that what? It will be going away from the content. But what I've done by saying 100%, that's what? Use the entire word space. Don't give any extras. Don't leave any space. That is the reason why this scroll bar is fixed. So there is no more space for me to what? To go down. I've limited it. And mind you, it might be responding well on laptop. I talked about what? Adaptability the other time, which is what? Responsiveness. So most of the properties that might look as if they are not doing anything, they might be for what? When this same website is open on what? Another device. So now let's keep the ministry moving. The next one is the background image. The whole of this section where I have the whole of this, because this is not the full page now. Okay, so I want to give you background image, and I've taught us linear gradients, right? So let me quickly, I don't know if I've added any image to my folder. Let me see if I have image. Oh, I don't have image, so let me quickly go to browser and get good looking background image. So let's say this is about what type of site are we going to say? Okay, it's about school, right? It's about school. Okay, let's say tech training. Tech training. And then I'll go to what? Image. So I would like to use one of this background. It's just an illustration. So let me just use any one. But take your time. If it's a real project, take your time and look for a good looking background that have some of the colors you are prioritizing. I mentioned it the other time. So now, this is not the, what is the folder that time? NIT, okay, NIT. Go inside the image. Let me say BG1. So now the next step is I want to give it background color. But here I'm going to use linear gradient concepts. Linear gradient concept. So I will say background what? Image. I'll say background image, and then I'll say what? Linear gradient function inside it. So I'm going to blend gradient color on the image. The image will not cover the whole background. It's as if many of us have seen it, like graphic design now. You see where they have a picture, they will blend the background. At some point, you will not see the picture, so that they can write some content on it. Good. That is what we want to achieve now. So to achieve that, I will call the colors for I'll call the solid color using arrow what? GB what? A method. RGBA method, RGBA is a function which we use in calculating what? Gradient color, right? So I have standard, like I said, all these standard that I'm going to teach you. When you go, when you start doing your own, you can change them. So, but you have to learn with at least one of them. So I'll put 0 here, comma, 0 here, comma, 0, then, comma, 0.6. What color would that generate? Not full black, right? Because that 0.6 has transparency, because that 0.6 is the alpha value, which is called opacity, to dim the color, to reduce the sharpness of a color. We call that what? Opacity. Okay? So when you say RGBA, the R represents what? Red color. The G represents what? Green color. The B represents what? Blue. While the A represents what? So if I remove the value for the alpha now and check, you now have a full what? Black. Look at it. So why I added that alpha value is just to what? To reduce it. So that's That is the first color that will be blended on the image that will be involved. So I'll come outside it and put a comma. Okay. How do I give space?
Spaces. Like the way you leave like 29 to 29, 30, you should next from
I'm just pressing enter now. Like here now, after writing this code now, once I press enter. And once I want to leave this selected, I come here. Huh? I'll be answer your question. So no fear. Yeah, from big hearts. No fear. So now, comma. So I'll do another ROGBA, ROGBA, another color. And this color calculation will be the same with this other one, which is what? 0, 0, 0, 0, what? 0 point what? Who said 9? Was it 9 I used? Oh, sorry, it's 6 I want to use. No wonder it was not that sharp like the first one. Hope we are following.
Yes, sir.
Now, the next thing is, I want to bring the picture that this color will blend in, that background. So now you have to come outside the linear gradient, which means that what? Those two ROGBA, they are direct property of what? Linear gradient function. So I'll come outside here to show that what? I am done with what? Linear gradient. I want to bring what? An external object, which is what? Picture. Now, how do I bring the picture? The picture is not embedded in the program. It's what? From another source, right? I'll say what? URL. So that I can call the picture what? Paths. Are you following? So now the next thing is for you to call the picture by putting what? Slash, in order to output all your file directory. Then we are going to where? Image, and then I am picking this. If I go to the front end now and check, something must have changed. Can you see it? It's repeating it. Consider what? Because this picture background, this background picture is smaller than the what? The page. So what the browser did is to read your mind that it's possible that you want to use this small image to cover the whole of this page. Oh, if that should be the case, let me just copy them, and make sure that what? The entire page is what? Fill up. I will say, no, you read me wrong. That is not what I mean. What I mean is what? Just one of it should fill the entire what? So I'll come back here. The next thing I'm going to do is to end this command here. Go down. It's a different property entirely. You say what? Background size. If you have been with me before, you know all this, right? Background what? Size. You say what? Cover. So if I go back now, you say what? Only one is now what? So instead of me saying background repeat, no repeat, I just use size to just stop it. Now, the next, but you can see that what? This image is blurred. You have overstretched the image. So that is why sometimes we take this picture to Photoshop. We will now resize it to standard resolution, which is 1024 by what? 9 by 900 or 960 or 950. Then export it as what? PNG or JPEG, so that it will now still be what? Clear before you bring it here. Or you go to a website, you can go to, there is this website, just go to Google and type what? Website to get clear images that have been standardized. Yes, you will see different URL, different options. I think we have a PC, something like that. There are a lot of websites where some persons on their own have uploaded, have mastered some pictures and then put them there. But some of them are free, some you will pay because that is their job. That is how they are making money. They know that you and I will be having issue of not having clear images when we are building website. So their work is that they have taken, they have used good camera, like all these Samsung high resolution camera to get some picture. And you cannot afford to buy such cameras. So that is their business. So they will just go and do it and put the picture when you want to buy. If you need this one that is clear and you like it, you pay $1. So there are so many ways people are making money on the internet. It's only where you decide to be sleeping all through. Then you sleep poverty. Okay, so now the next thing I want to do is I discovered that there are times that when you fill a background with an image, you will discover that the very important part of that background you want to see is inside. Supposing, normally this one, I'm getting the right view. I want them to see this picture to show that what? This is where you learn how to use what? Computer, right? But after you have placed it, you now discover that this picture is now somewhere here. They are only seeing half of it. So how do you bring it? That is where you will now add background position. You now say center so that it will centralize it. So you now say what? Background position. So indirectly, I am using all this to teach you this CSS what? Properties. Background position, I will say what? Center. So if I go back now, you see that what? For this image, it was already, is there any adjustment? No. But your own can adjust based on what you are looking for. All right, so for now, I'm leaving that one. Like I always tell students is that there is no final point of styling. There is no place you get to say, okay, this is the last thing I should do in CSS. You come to the end of styling when you feel that what your object is looking at least nice. 30, 40, 50, 60%. Another person can go and say, no, I don't like that opacity. Now, you know that if I want to dim this, let me reduce some value so that you see the impact of some of those things you did in the linear gradients. So let's say the alpha value now, I want to, okay. I want the color to spread to cover the whole picture. If I use one now, you see that it just start somewhere, the other side will be showing the full. I don't want to leave room for the picture. I want at least, I'm giving gap. Now, if I do 3 here now, and then, was it 3? The one that increased it the other time, I think it was 9, have you? 9. So, okay, let me put what? 9 here. And then come here also. Because sometimes you may not like this one. So if I come back now, can you see it now? It's there, but just that it's now fainter. Can you see it now? You cannot see it like before. This is what I want, because this one now makes the link right up to come up. Because before, the image was distracting the right up. Because you are not, I know this, if you off the light now, you see better, but here it's looking nice here. And this is exactly how I want it. So what I have shown you now is that 0.6 is not constant. You can increase it or what? Reduce it until you get what you are looking for. All right, so now let's move on. The next one is, let's go back to the structure. This is what we just style now, right? Now, this is what I want to style now. You see how I'm going now? And this very one, I did not class it. It's my choice. I can decide to what? Class it. If I know that there is somewhere else, I'm going to use what? Nav. If I'm sure that I will reuse it somewhere else, maybe in the footer, I will class it to be on the safer side. So let me just class it. I'll class it what? Nav. So I'll go to my CSS. I'll come out here and comment styling the what? The nav. Sorry. Dot nav. So the first thing I am going to do is to flex it. Oh, call what? Flexing. Flexing. Call it flexbox. Let me go and demonstrate the concept. This is a new concept that was introduced 5 years or 6 years ago. We were using what we call column or grid to achieve what flex is easily what? Achieving in today's world. Now, the nav element is the one that is directly holding what? NIT logo and the what? The UL and the what? Item, right? Yes, sir. Which means that we are going somewhere. All these things now, this is one element, is displaying what? This element is displaying block because it's taking its own what? Line. This one is also displaying what? Block. This one is displaying block. This one is displaying block. This one is also displaying block. This one is also block. Now, what I want at the end of the day, I want the home to come here. This is what I will have at the end of the day. Then the about will follow. That is, instead of them displaying in one row, I want to logically display each of them as what? Different column. Logically. So I will flex the main container. So once you flex the main container, we are saying that what? The item inside it that are in one container now should take what? Different what? Container. And when that happens, they will not be placed side by side, not what? Stacking. Because what we are having now is what? Stack order on top. Now, that is the reason why I'm going to say. So I'll come back here. I'll say flex. Sorry, I'll say display. Display, because this is display value. Display what? Flex. You can most times, depending on the scenario, block can as well do it. Now, if I go back to the front end, what has happened? Any difference? Let me clear this. What is the difference? Because of the, okay, let me go and return it back to 3 itself. It was that linear gradient, right? Let me see. From here. Let me put it 3 so that you can see very well. Yeah. Can you see it now? Yeah. Who is close to the lights? Please off the lights. Let's see. They just open the off this light. Then give me lights here. If not, I will use 10 hours to look for my keys. Don't need too much if not. But we can see it like this, it's okay. So now, so what is the difference? I'm asking, what is the difference? They are not on the same line. Because you can see that what? This home. So it's not seeing the H1 as the first element in that container nav, followed by what? You know, all these are in one container. Hope you know that. So until we now go and what? Display what? The UA block inline. Before all these items will now be what? Horizontal. So let me continue. So that is the work of what? That place. So the next thing is what? Justify content. Justify content. Justify content. You see, this is another property that you cannot use when you are talking to individual elements. What are we talking to now? Container, right? That's what the things inside that container, justify them. That's what place them or give them equal space. So if I come here and say justify content, justify content, and I say well, space in between. Do I have the option here? Space in between, space around. These are options you can use. Space in between. If I go back to the front end, what have you noticed now? Space in between. Yes, that's what we want. We are going somewhere. Justify content. So the next thing is padding top. Padding top. Why do I need padding top? I want what? Space. Padding top. So if I come here and say what? Padding top. And then let me say 40 PS. 40 PS. Then I go back and check. What does that space give now? Here, right? Good. Then the next one is I still need some padding, but this time around from the left. So I'll say what? Padding left. So I want to use just little space, 10 PS, and then I check again. Good. Padding left. That is here now. You can see it now. Padding left. Then I still need padding from the right so that those items can also what? Move in a little. So padding right. Then I will use the same 10 because I want the same space. And then I'll check. Good. You notice the movement? Move away from here a little. Now, there is what we call looking room. Looking room. That is what we are what to give to the user. Remember that we are building this website to give users what? Good experience. Looking room. So what is looking room? Looking room is you are giving them space to look through the element. So if they are too close to the wall, you are not giving them space to look. So this is actually a cinematography term. That's why you see all those camera persons say, well, headroom is too tight. Headroom is too tight. That's what the person head should not be touching the frame. Give some space. This was so that as the person is talking, we want to see the people that is talking to, want to look through. But when you mesh the edge, it means that what? You bust them. So what we did here now is that we don't want this to be too close to what? To the borderline. So we created some space. So the next thing I want to do here is, like I said, I am styling because I am trying to explain different what? CSS property. That does not mean that you must use what? Padding right. You must use what? Padding left. Or you must use padding right 10. Or padding left what? 10. You can be what? 20. You can be 5. Good. So that you don't go and cram. You don't go and cram. All you need to do is to make sure that you know the standard. Now, I want to talk to the logo. What is the logo in this website now? The logo is this what? NIT, right? Good. So I want to talk to the logo. So for now, I may come back after I've styled everything. And when I start comparing element A with element B, I will now see some things that were not probably what? Done. So you can come back, but for now, I want to leave this particular selector. So I'll say what? Styling the logo. Styling the logo. So what do I want? How do I want the logo to look like? One, based on the background, can I use white? So if I say color, remember that, sorry, how did we class the logo? Let's see, is a logo, right? This is it now, the H1. We class it what? Logo. So I'll say dot logo. Then I'll say what? Color. So let me try white and see how good it will go. Good. Based on this background, I think the white is still okay. But where I have issue now is what? That other word, T. But let's see first. So the font for the logo, which font will I use? Okay, let's say font size rather. Font size. An average of let me use 28 PS and see what I'm going to get. Okay.
20.
Put 20. Okay. Now, if I want to change the handwriting, what will I do? Font what? Family. So I can just choose some here and check. You can see that it has automatically dropped that one that we put in the global selector. Good. And this T is still using what? Global selector font. Because remember, we got it through what? The span tag, right? Good. That is the reason why it's not talking to it. So I can control it over there if I want. So the next one is the span tag. So I don't think we class it, right? We did not. Are you sure we did not class it? Okay, let me. So I will just say color. I'm thinking of changing this one to red. And then we cannot change the what? The font, right? If we are not okay with that, but if we are okay with it because of time, let me just move on. We class it, you can see that it did not change. So let's go to our structure and check. Okay, we did not class it, but we have to reference it with what? The parent what? Element, right? Because it's a child element of H1. That is the reason why it did not work. So I will just say what? H1. I will just say H1 space. So if I go back now, you can see it now. Okay. So the next element is to make blood inline display. All those, let me use comment to explain some of these things here because to make block links to display inline block. So inline block is just like a single property that can switch from what? Inline when it's on one device and then display what? Block when it's on another what? Device. So if I push just display block, it might just be displaying well on only one what? Device. And it will be based on the size. Remember that we are capturing what? Mobile. Even though on laptop, it will display inline. As well, all the links will display on the same line on laptop. But what about mobile? Definitely they cannot display what? On one line. So on mobile, they will display what? Block. On laptop, they will display what? Inline. That's the reason why we are using what? Inline block. So now, what I'm going to do here is simply call this. Which of the elements are we talking to? Which of the elements are we talking to? The nav bar, right? Now look at how I'm going to reference it to. I'll say nav, UL, and what? LI. Did you understand the structure? That is what? What we are talking to is the LI. But the LI is in what? The parent element called what? Div. Sorry, the grandparent element, right? And the Li is directly because the Li the link, sorry, the tag that generated what? The link. Because what we are targeting is the, let me go to the front so that you can understand it. You see that all this link, they are displaying what? Block. But we want them to display what? Horizontal. That's inline. So which element generated this list, this link? Is it not Li? And the Li is inside what? UL. And the UL is inside what? Nav. That's the reason why I have to follow that. So now I will now simply say list style. The first thing is that all these dots, I want to disappear them. I don't need them. All these dots, I don't want them. So I will say what? List what? Style. I'll say what? None. None. So if I go back to the side, you see that what? I have removed what? All those dots. Now, the next thing is to display them straight line, right? That is what I would say display inline what? Block. So if I go back to the front end now, can you see it now? They are now what? Horizontal. So the next thing is what? Padding. I want some space between them. That is from the inside. Padding, and the padding is going to be for only some side. So I will say padding. After this, I'll be going for, in fact, there's no room for commercial break because time is. Padding, I will say what? Let's say 10 PS by 20 PS. I believe you can interpret this. Which one is 10 out of the four sides? Top and bottom, left and right, right? So if I come back here now, you see that what? They change. Now, the padding, let me see what could have caused it, whether because I zoom the screen. So you can see the space now, the space between them. Now, you have a question? Okay, good. Now, the next thing is I want to talk to the A itself. Remember, in the Li, we added what? Anchor tag, right? Because I want to drop that underline. I want to change the color of the link. So to talk to them, this is what we are going to do. Styling the what? The A in what? Li. So this is how I'm going to use my reference. I'll say what? Before you can get to this A, you reference what? Nav. You reference what? UL. You reference what? Li. Then before the what? The A. Then you declare your block. So the first thing is text decoration or color. The first thing is what? Color. Color, I want to go with what? White. Based on your background, please. Now, let's check now whether perfect, right? The next thing is that what? Who sent you? Am I the one that says you decorate it with underline? I don't need it. It makes it look too childish. I want to look mature. So that is called what? Text decoration. So I will now come here and say text what? Decoration. You can see that we have learned up to like 10 to 15 what? CSS what? Properties today now. Because that is the best, way to know them, not writing them and just be defining them. It's when I'm using them, you are seeing their reaction. It's easier for each word to stick. So now, text decoration. I can say, okay, the default one is always underlined. I can say what? Give me what? Overline or over. I think we have overline. It might be a style that you need. So if I go back now, somebody may like this one. I say, oh, unique way. By default, it came with what? Underline. I have changed to what? Overline. Now, if you don't like anyone, not be by force, just put what? None. Say, here, you killer. Now, you come back here, neat. You can see what gives user good experience is not complexity. Is what? Is simplicity. One of the way I will know that this person is a beginner graphic designer, if I see where they put signboard, or if somebody give me handbill, if I want to know when the person started what? Practicing. I don't need to ask. I will look at the way he's using colors. Because that is how they always think that the number of colors they use is what determines the no. You know, like if I see a lady that paint eyes red, paint mask blue, I know that this one just the open eyes. over awareness, they worry this one because you don't tell her never advertise herself. But when you see mature ladies, they dress simple. I don't know why I even talk this one now. This one now, I'm recording it. Disclaimer, please, I am not advertising ladies. I'm just trying to explain something. Okay. I've settled this. So now, I want to do something. I want a situation whereby if they touch any of this, there should be a focus that will differentiate it from the other ones that are not selected. Hover effect. If somebody is here and it touches this one, how will he know that, okay, this is the one I am focusing on at the moment? If the appearance does not change from the other one. So that is what we call what? Hover effect. So this appearance is the actual appearance. Hover effect is an appearance that comes on an element after the user has triggered what? An action. So when they get to the page, they will see what? This by default. Then when I now move and now touch this, I have triggered what? An action. So based on that action, it should give me different what? Appearance. So that is what we call what? Hover effect. It is not only this. So what I will do is that I will simply copy the whole of this. Copy the whole of this to save my time. Control C. Then come here. So I will just say adding what? Hover effect. So I will paste. But the syntax is that after that A, I'll put what? Column. And then I'll type what? Hover before the CSS what? Declaration block. That means it's the same element you are talking to, but you are defining what? Different what? Appearance. So now, when you want to define your hover effect, you must differentiate the effect from what? The actual effect. The actual effect is white, right? Then hover effect should change to which color that can complement the background. Let's say what? On this. If they hover on this, if it changes to red, it's still okay because there is red here, right? Or if it changes to this color, yellow, good. So you calculate this color combination. So now I will say, okay, I want to click here. I don't know the color. For example, I don't know the name of the color. So I'll say, okay, by hover here, I'll pick a color bucket. So from here, I will now select the color I want. Let's say I want color from this group. Let's say something like this. So I have switched from selecting color with name to what? RGBA automatically. So if I come back to the website now and I hover on this, can you see it? So now, does it mean that I have not removed it? Oh, sorry, I did not type the not full. Did not understand that language. So I can say that when the user hover on this, it should zoom out. It should appear bigger a little instead of just changing the color. So I will just come to how many times? Oh, I think I don't need this one here. Okay, this is where I added the hover, right? Here. What did I do here? Do I need this one here? No, I don't need this one. Okay, I copied and paste that time. Okay, good. So I will say what? Let's say, what will I use now? Let's say size, font size. Font size. I want it to appear bigger a little. There, you look at the font size you use. The actual font size for that is what? You do not even have any actual font size, right? So you can come here. I think there was a place where we talked about the size now. Was it not here? Okay, let me just put actual font size. Font size. As for the logo, I mean. So let's say font size. Font size should be 20 ps. Now that I know my actual font size, if I want it to increase when they hover, I'll put a higher value here. That is more than what? That 20. Are you getting it now? So I'll say like 30 what? ps. So if I go back now, if they hover, you see that what to appear bigger. That is a choice. If you discover that it's going to, it's a kind of spoiling your work, you can what? Remove it. It's not by force. Now let's go to, in our HTML, there is a structure we need to add. There is a structure we need to add after the div that is holding, after the UL rather, after the UL still inside this. So what I'm going to do here is I'll bring in a button. A button is a tag. And this button, I want to use it. I'll give it maybe type attributes. I believe we talked about that when we were designing the form, right? Type what? Attributes. I'll name it what? Button. Now, the description will be subscribe. Subscribe, for example. So if I go back there and check, I have it here. So this button is what I want to style now. That is what I want to style now. So in my CSS, remember that we can talk to it with its own word, direct name, or we use a class. So styling the word, the button. Styling the button. So I'll simply come here and say, since I don't think there's somewhere else I'm going to use button, there is a class. So now I will start by saying border. I want to add some border just to make it look presentable. Or border, in fact, because there will be default border. So I have stopped the border. I don't want it. Let me check. Okay. So the next is the background color. Background. I can use background and then use hexadecimal. Remember I said there's another way you can calculate color using what? Hexadecimal. Decimal, where you start with what? Hash. And then combine some letters so you know the color you are looking for. So if I say A115 to give you this color. You just want it to stand out from others so that they can know that they have to subscribe. So the next thing is padding. I want to add some padding to it. Padding. Padding 12 ps. 12 ps by 30 ps. Okay. That is too much. You can then border radius. I want to design the corners. Border radius. Give me border radius of 30 ps. So the next thing is, let's say color. Color. Let me use white. Then font weight. There is a practical word, font weight. Is to thicken it. Font weight, I'll say what? Bolder. Or I can use what? Bold. Check. Just to make it a little bit thicker. The next one is font size. Font size, let's assume I'm using just 15 ps. The next one is transition. I want some effect. Transition. Though I have not talking about CSS animation yet, but when I start taking it as a topic, we understand it better. These are the elementary aspects of what CSS animation. So we can say transition. I can say .4 second. So this is just like the speed to take to respond. So if I go back there now and I click on it, it's there. But when you add, there are other effects we are supposed to add before we notice it's what moving. Effects like timeline or an other transition effect. But for now, I don't want to go into that. So the way I'm going to achieve it a little is adding over effect. So we need to define the width, because I discovered that the button is too big, right? It's too big, so we have to reduce the width. I don't know. Let me zoom out and see whether it's okay. The width is still too much, right? Even, okay, let me add width. Width, let's say, let me try 200 ps and see what that will generate. Okay, I think, yeah, it's better like this. But the height now, I will reduce what? The height. Reduce the height. Let me try 40 ps and see what that will generate. I think it's better like this. Have you? Or 50? 50? So let me add a line height, because I discovered that it's not on the same alignment, right? So I will just say line height. Line height. Let me try 80 ps first. No? Let me try 20 ps. Let me check the difference between 20 ps. It moved down a little, have you? Now 40 ps. 40 ps. Let me try something.
Now, remember that this button is inside what? Is inside the div that we flex. I mean, looking at the structure, but it's outside the UL. Sorry, it's inside the nav bar, right? It's inside the nav bar, right? It's inside the nav bar. So which means that let me go and add that line height to the nav bar so that I can centralize all the items inside it. So there's a place where we are talking to what? Nav bar itself. I think here is it. Here, right? So let me add that line height, let's say 80. 80 PS. It took it far from it, have you? I think the first one was, okay, let me still try another value. So we have to debug it until we are able to place it at the center. Did it come down a little? That is, let's check, let me check 40. Yes, it's going now, right? 40, then, what? Let's try 30 first. 25. If this could not do it, that means we have to deploy another method. Okay, so now let's calculate it differently. This button, and if I add this, no, it won't work, because if I add it inside this container, that is the only way. Let me even remove it and see what I have by default if it's manageable on laptop. Think it's manageable. The only way I can place these two things on the same alignment is to wrap the whole of this. Yeah, in one container, right? This is nav now. No, this is not in nav. Yeah, this one is in nav. This one, they are also what? In nav. Yeah, but this one is not. This one is also in nav now, right? Okay, so let's see if we use margin top to see whether we can push it down, since they are all in the same container. So I'll go to where I have that button. Margin top. Let me push it. I try auto. Let me see auto move it down too much. At least it moves. Shows that you should be able to control it. 20 PS. 20 PS. Okay, perfect. So you can see I have to calculate the structure before I could know which one to talk to. Now,
the background color is going to be bigger than the bigger.
which one?
The background color of the subscriber.
On this one? Yes, it's the width. It's the width. So if you want to correct it, where we say height, what? Height 40, abi? So if I remove this height first, let me comment it out and see how it will display first. Then you can see that is that width. So now that means that width, that 40 was too much. So what I'm going to do is to bring it back and reduce it to something like 30. Something like 30. No, I put 40 before, abi?
Yes, sir.
So let me put, but I have height there. What did I put? Let me go back to that 40. And then height, I said, sorry, this is height, abi? Then the weight is 200. Okay. Then the font size, what did I use? The font size is 15, right? Let me increase the font size a little. So you have to keep troubleshooting until you get which one exactly. Let me try 20 and see if that will be able. 20 is worst. Have you? Let me try 10. Oh, sorry. Yes, he put it at the middle, but it's too small. Good. So that is 10. Okay, so now let's go back to 15. Let's go back to 15. Then the width. Let me reduce the width. Is there padding? Oh. Yes, so is the padding proportion. Yes, that is issue. So let's put the padding 15. Sorry, 12, right? Or let's say, let's use just one padding, just one. You know, we can use one now. You know what? Equal space round. So if I come here now, is it better? I did not see any difference. So damn, it wasn't caused by the padding. There was something I was wanted to calculate width ahead. So instead of 200, let me try 150. 150. Perfect. I think it's better. Better. So now let me see if I can. So I wanted to add the last styling before we end the class is the hover. I want to add over to that button as well. So after that, adding over effect. Now remember that adding over effect, I will just do button column, right? Then over, and then before my CSS block, then I'll bring in transition. Transform. You know, we have transition there already. We say what? Transform. Transform have different value. I'm still going to explain all this, but just to achieve this project. So transform scale. I want the size to be changing when you hover. That's why I'm using scale. I would say scale. Scale is just another way of measuring width and height. So scale by 3. Then cursor. If they click on it to show the hand. So I will now say what? Cursor. Or I will say, yeah, cursor, pointer, pointer not here, pointer. So if I go to the front end now, if I click, you see the way it moves out. Can you see the way it's flexing? Yes, sir. So it's giving a kind of life to it. People will enjoy this because of it. They want to come to your website. That is the idea. You're trying to entertain them. So, any question? So from now to Thursday, your navigation bar should be ready.